Okay, I'm going to continue on with the downward spiral. I think I've set the stage enough. I think the single worst thing that happened to me when I was a child was watching my dad get, taken away or carted off by the police. And then being inside that household with that stepmom. She was pretty, I don't know, for lack of a better word, she was pretty evil to us. Um, really sucks when you have a stepmom and she hates you, and then where do you fit in the world? Right under her hatred. I mean, she was mad at us every day just for us existing. Me and my sisters used to sit upstairs, and we had a little cassette player, and we used to listen to that Michael Jackson "We Are the World" and just huddle up next to each other. But I mean, at that moment, I don't know, I just started hating the police because they took my dad. But I mean, I had no perspective. It's not their fault. And then I started hating people. I mean, I think that's where it was. It's where it all began. It didn't get any better. I mean, eventually we did get taken back in by our other family, but we just still had all this toxic energy. I mean, I'm gonna kind of skip the infantilism. I mean, some of the childhood really sucked, but moving on. Somewhere around high school, around 16, I started smoking cigarettes, and that was the beginning. And everybody, then it was weed. We used to have this thing called Red Bud, and that's what we'd smoke. We'd just smoke that all the time. I mean, and then I remember going to school on acid, um, and all kinds of drugs, like whatever. I ate pills. I did anything that I could get my hands on. I guess I was just trying to escape, so I didn't have to feel any of that stuff. Um, and I got a girlfriend in high school, and I remember us going out for a while, and I remember breaking up with her just because she was getting close to my person. Like, I started to feel for her, and she was getting through my defensive layers. So I think I had to run away from that relationship, and that was kind of why I couldn't get close to anybody at all. I mean, it took years to work that crap out. But anyway, so at first the partying was fun, and especially we just go to school, party, have fun, and then eventually it turned into like I only showed up to school to party. That's it. I would show up, find out where the people were, and then I'd leave. So I'd jump in the car and go party with somebody. A lot of those partiers never made it. Anyway, and then it got worse from there. I think I quit school, stopped going. Um, I would try to have a job for a while, and I'd just be loaded. Uh, and of course, it's hard to keep a job if you're loaded. Then after that, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Um, my dad lived in Yakima. My mom lived in Seattle. My mom still lives in Seattle. But what I would do is I'd party. I'd go, to Seattle. I'd party, and then I'd go to Yakima and I would party. Um, I remember once being in front of this judge, and he tells me, "Hey," then I'm in Seattle, and he's just like, if you can't get in trouble for Seattle for in like a whole year, or else you're gonna get all the other parts of your punishment. Like you'll get all the days that are suspended. And I was like, okay. And so when they let me out of that courtroom, I came back to Yakima because I didn't want to get in trouble in Seattle because I was scared it was gonna throw me in jail longer. Seattle jail is really no joke. It's kind of crazy. I remember being like in classification, and they had me in this cell, and I'm just sitting there, and then like the guard comes up, gets me out of the cell, moves me to the next cell that's right next to this cell, and it looks the exact same. I mean, pretty much. You have a little bench, and that's it. And then he locks, the door, and then he walks off, comes back with somebody, puts him in the cell that I was just in. I was looking at him, I'm like, what was that all about? But then you kind of realize, like, after you're there all day long, I mean, they get to you when they can get to you. I mean, these guys are busy, so you could be in classification for a long time. And that's kind of lame because you want to get up to your cell. Maybe you can go take a nap, go get a meal. I don't know. That was weird, though, but when I was there, they had a TV. Yakima never had no TV in their county. Well, I mean, there was one in the God Pod, but you had to wake up really early, and that was hard to do when I was trying to sleep. So I didn't last in the God Pod for more than, like, I don't know, 10 minutes. I couldn't get up. They were only watching religious shows anyway. I didn't really want to watch that. But, yeah, it got out of hand. Like, I couldn't control my use at all. I was just angry. My dad called me a backdoor kid. And it got bad. So I was like, every time I did something wrong, I got arrested, and then I'd never show up for the probation, and so then I'd always get a warrant against me, and then they would always be carting me off, and the second they let me out, I was off. I meant to walk across the street and go talk to probation officers or whatever, but I couldn't. I just had to go get loaded because it'd been X number of days, 40 days or whatever, since I'd been loaded. You think that'd be a great time to jump off at that point. But it wasn't. I mean, all I could think about was that. And it got really bad. I saw this problem. Whenever I take street drugs, I've got psychiatric symptoms. And later on in life, I figured that out with a doctor. Dr. Angelo. Smartest man, like, in my life. He was really cool. He wouldn't give me what I wanted. I remember going to doctors, and you'd kind of be able to, try to manipulate them to get, like, any kind of drugs or whatever you can, but he wouldn't let me manipulate him. I remember walking in and telling him, I want Ativan, and he's just like, you can't have Ativan, you can have Cogentin, and I'm like, yeah, but Cogentin doesn't work. I want the mood-altering, mind-altering effect from Ativan. But he wouldn't give it to me. It was weird. So I wrote a list of like all the drugs that I'd been abusing, and I turned it into him. He told me that he was going to keep it, but he wasn't going to tell me why. He went and staffed me. I mean, I'd been going to this comprehensive mental health for years, and then he closed my case after that. He was like, Kia, if you don't want to have psychiatric symptoms, you have to stop using street drugs. I'm like, what? He said, if you want the voices to go away, if you don't want to have hypomania, you don't want to have this big diagnosis and all this stuff against you, just stop using street drugs. And I was just like mind blown. Why would I do that? You're telling me that I should stop using drugs? You know, I'm like, I don't know. At the time, I couldn't understand it because I remember, like, when I had started using drugs, I used to go to school, and anytime somebody would talk to me, they were like, "Hi," and I'd be like, "Exactly," you know, and I was high all the time. But he had figured something out. There was no amount of mental medication they could give me because they were giving me the mental medication, and I was abusing that. I don't know, you know. I think the most Paxils I ever took in one day was like 20, and I couldn't stop my mouth from smiling. I was like happy, and I was abusing their psychotropic medication. They were giving it to me, so I was eating it. You know, I'm like, well, there's some drugs right there. I guess that's not normal. Um, I'm a drug addict. Years later, when I stopped using street drugs, I stopped getting in trouble. It was like a freaking, like a duh. I mean, and I hate being the last person to figure something out, but I always am, like every single time. Like everybody already knew it. Um, but I wasn't there